Hello and welcome to the Cybersecurity Insider. Today we are live with Seth, our favorite guest. What's going on, Seth?
I'm good. How you doing today?
Thank you. Great to see you again. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the first item on the list, which is Apple releases updates to fix 30-day vulnerabilities. Seth, you want to comment on it?
Um, the 0 days that they have, I think they've been around for a couple of weeks, but I would say that Apple is pretty responsive. They're more responsive than Microsoft on any of the vulnerabilities when they find out. But this also goes to show when people say, "Oh, Apple is more secure than Android," or "Apple's more secure than Windows." They're all pretty much the same. It's about the the actual base, being that Microsoft has a larger base, and so does Android. Well, actually, if I'm mistaken, Apple probably has a larger base in the device market. But either way, whoever's the big boy is the one that's going to get harder. And so, but they're really more responsive than most. So I give them credit for that.
Okay, so I agree to some of your points that they are definitely trying to do better, although they didn't do better in the past because they didn't, mention any kind of vulnerabilities. So people thought, oh, because we didn't hear anything about any disclosures from Apple, so probably Apple is more secure than other systems. But the known fact is that Apple, I don't know, since which release, they switched from their own proprietary operating system and they moved to the Linux based system. So if you have a Linux based issues, they're probably going to inherit to a Mac. But although they compile their own kernel, so it's kind of a so this is interesting. So just to get to context, so Apple released updates to Mac OS 11.4, 10.15, 10.14, and iPad OS 14.6, Watch OS 7.5, and TV OS 14.6, and addresses 3 0-day vulnerabilities, hacker exploited in the wild. So they're talking here about actually exploiting weaknesses to bypass privacy protections, and the other two were touching the WebKit of Apple TV and Apple TV HD. Okay, so this is kind of and this is actually the second in the month that they are issuing a notification about vulnerabilities and the patches that become available. So with that, I think we talked about it.
And one of those is for the Apple TV, which can get a little hairy if you do. But here's the point. Here's the one thing that these things come out. Pretty much only people in our industry know about this stuff in general. The hackers, and that's it. Because most people aren't going to do anything, no matter what they get. So.
Right, but since both of us, we are trying to bring everything that we see, not everything, but at least things that we think that people may find it interesting and relevant to them. We are trying to bring it in our podcast by the Cybersecurity Insider, and this is exactly the insider information. Not every people know about it, and we try to bring it out there and talk about it, and actually try to have some sort of discussion and get more about it. So with that, we're gonna move to some good news. City of Tulsa prevents data theft from ransomware attack. Woo! We need to applause to them. Yeah. And this is one of how many that were not prevented. I mean, at least we need to give them some credit about great job that they did. So here's the backstory. The city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, says it will not pay a ransom demanded by ransomware operator behind an attack on the city's network. The city detected suspicious activity on its network and shut it down before the attackers could access information. Residents have been unable to pay their water bills either online or in person. Interesting why they couldn't go in person and pay it. It's like,
Same,
I guess
same system.
because yeah, they're using the same network. So so this is kind of another interesting why they can do in person, and I believe they don't have network segmentation, and this is something that's really interesting because you need to segment different pieces of your network and separate them so one wouldn't affect the other one. So let's say if you have the credit card machines, you put them in a different network so you can still process payments and it's not going to affect. And that's probably what happened. They're sharing the same network, same segment. So this is
the other issue could be is that they're using same application regardless to where you come from, whether you're online or whatever. It could be the same application. So on the back end, it's the same. So wherever you go, you're screwed. So I guess they shut it down for precaution. Who knows?
yes. Okay. So another point here to mention here that they will be able to detect it. They notice a suspicious activity, and this is exactly what we see. We see a lot of companies that
Right,
they
they're ahead
have.
of the game. They're ahead of the game. They saw it, which they could
Yes,
stop it beforehand.
right. But other companies still have the problem with the poor visibility, and like the other guy that we spoke with him, if you remember, and they don't have enough visibility to what's going on. So this is definitely an improvement to have the detection piece, but of course you want to have a prevention. So you need to detect it. So this is really interesting thing.
And I know I had a discussion with somebody a little while ago, and when you made that comment, they don't have full view into their networks. A lot of times that's by design. They if they don't see it, they don't know about it. They don't want it sometimes. They don't want to know what's going on because then they have to do something and they have to spend the money. And a lot of times, a lot of these CIOs or CEOs rather spend money later than spend it now.
Right. Okay. All right. So now we're gonna move to our next subject, which is yes, Microsoft will retire Internet Explorer next year. I know some customers are still using the old Internet Explorer application and not using the Internet Explorer compatibility function within the Microsoft Edge. So this is going to retire on June 15th, 2022. For certain versions of Windows 10, IE will be replaced with Microsoft Edge, which has an IE mode that is able to load legacy web pages requiring Internet Explorer. What do you say?
It's about time. You should have done it a long time ago.
Yes.
They should have did it back in the NetWare Navigator days.
Well, at least they're trying to do their best. So we can say, great job, Microsoft. Finally, they do something right. Maybe better later than ever. Okay.
Yeah, but the underlying code is still there in IE, meaning
Under the Microsoft Edge. Yes, under the
right under
Microsoft
Edge
Edge.
they have that IE mode, but then that means a lot of the vulnerabilities are there. Am I mistaken? If you have a legacy
Maybe,
mode,
who knows? maybe. It's not clear if those are still there or not. I'm not clear if this is the case, but who knows?
right?
If they find vulnerabilities, that will be a sign that the code is still there and still vulnerable. Okay, and we are back to ransomware. FBI, Conti Flash Alert, Conti Ransomware Group is targeting healthcare and first responder networks. In a flash alert, the FBI says that Conti Ransomware Group hit at least 16 US healthcare and first responder networks within the last year. The alert provides technical details about the Conti ransomware, including indicators of compromise, IOCs, and recommends mitigations, including implementing network segmentation, what I said about the city of Oklahoma, right? And then Tulsa, right? What was that? Tulsa.
Tulsa, yeah.
Uh, yes, and network segmentation and conducting regular data backups that are kept offline. Okay, what do you say?
Oh, somebody did the basics. You know what I mean? It's this is we're just talking about the basics here. It's funny because when you talk about that the gas company and them, and then the CEO goes, "Well, we had to pay." No, you didn't have to pay. If you did your job 6 months ago, you wouldn't have to pay. But go ahead. So, what Tulsa did is, they're warning people and giving you an example and heads up. Now, whether people listen to it, we'll see. If any of these, how many healthcare companies I know you've dealt with, I've dealt with, that have their head in the sand. Um, so,
Oh yeah, big time.
the FBI sending out these warnings. The FBI sends out warnings every day. You know what I mean? They send out these warnings and these updates every day. I think I got a ton of them in my emails. I get a ton of cybersecurity warnings. Most people are just going to ignore them.
Yes, and this is again going with to understand that everyone is a target to a cyber attack, is a target to cyber criminals. And actually, what I want to add here that hospitals and schools, K-12, for instance, they are very, very vulnerable because they don't do even the basic hygienes of an IT management, and therefore just simple thing, just to do patch management. We're not talking about doing anything that it's really out of the ordinary of IT management. Just install patches. This is one
Right.
point. The second point is password management, right? And then it goes with the other things that are basic backups. So if you think about it, you have one set of backup, which is typically locally, and then if you're hit by ransomware, a typical now ransomware will now go for not only for the data but also the backups, and will detect those backups and will encrypt the backups. So now probably in this the gas company in Florida that they suffered this cyber attack, they didn't have enough backups, or they didn't have full backups, and that they had to do something and they had to pay in order to retrieve the data. So definitely you need to have backups in different locations that are offline and online, so you can do quick recovery. And again, this is good with the RTO and RPO. So what's you wanted to add something else?
Yeah. Like going back to what we talked about with the Apple vulnerabilities, they put them out. You got to give the companies credit. We could argue and debate how long it takes for them to do it. That's a separate argument. But once they do it, you would be amazed how many people never update, never do that. Like you just said, these are the basics, low end. This is low hanging fruit. If you're
Yes,
not patching, you're just leaving the door open.
right,
Um,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and so that's the one thing. And then like you said, if people aren't just doing basic backup that go offline and that are disconnected from their network, and they're not checking, because there are ways to their software and different services out there that will check your backups for um, in the backup state. It'll go through it and start checking to see if there's any ransomware, any vulnerabilities in it as you go along. So if somebody would, a lot of times before you even know you've been hit, they may have been there for a couple of weeks. So then any backups you have may be compromised. But the thing is that's why there are services out there within backup services, different types of them, that will continually look at your backups and make sure that they're clean. And so when they discover something new, they'll go check for it. And so when you restore quickly after one of these things have been taken over, some type of ransomware, at least you have a peace of mind that you're most likely not reintroducing uh, uh, these ransomwares or vulnerabilities back into your network. But it's simple It's a simple way of looking at things, but people complicate it.
I don't say to say complicated. I think in some instances they are not doing what they're supposed to do, and instead of doing the basics, they don't want to touch things because they, and also think about it. So some of the systems are legacy systems, and if you patch them, you're gonna break them, the functionality. So if you can patch, you need to put some compensation mechanisms around those pieces of software or hardware or devices, if you will, that you can't update them, but you need to put around them some security controls and to compensate for those vulnerabilities that are inherited from those legacy systems and enable the security and not just leave it out there, not doing anything about it. So
Right. Well, like the like you said, some of the legacy systems I never understand them. Especially, I can understand you have 3, 4-year-old computers, but some of these big, the the, the gas company and a few other ones, the bigger ones. There's really no excuse why they have legacy systems, other than the fact that they didn't want to spend the money.
I don't think this is the case. It might be the case that it's more about that they are, they don't want to spend the money because whatever reason it is. But I think sometimes it's more about technical limitations. So let's say if talking about gas companies, so you have, you need to connect all the sensors from the field, which is relates to IoT. You need to collect all the data from the sensors and move it to connect it to a controller, and then the controller sends all the information, all the communication to from the manufacturing floor. This is how it's called, and then you move it back to the management systems and also to the internal systems. And now you need to put all those mechanisms that will allow to the information go in, but also to control the system from outside. So you need to have segmentation, and you need to have the ability to control those systems. So sometimes they're using older protocols. They're using older systems that you can't update them, or they are not under support anymore. So this is kind of the things that may prevent from them, upgrading to from legacy system to new systems. That's my understanding of the issues.
Right, and but see, here's the answer to that, and this is where I say, even with old legacy systems, we did it before. I did it before when I worked with Johnson and Johnson, and there were other companies. When you have an old legacy system that's dealing with something on the factory that has all of these, like you say, controllers and monitors, and you don't know what's going to happen if you upgrade, then a lot of times we virtualized it. We took the whole server and we virtualized it, put it on new equipment, and then it's still to that equipment. It still thinks it's on old equipment. So then and then you obviously had to do some other connections, usually, some RS connection or other ways to get that the information in and out of the virtual. But there are ways to do it, and that just surprises me that I don't see more of that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, hopefully somebody is listening to this our words and message, and maybe somebody will do something with that. Okay,
It's
and
money. It's all
let's
about money.
yeah, money and time, and
Pay
then
now, pay later.
also yeah, that too also. Okay, so let's move to WordPress. It's available for WordPress statistics vulnerability. So this is interesting. A SQL injection vulnerability in the WordPress statistics WordPress plugin could be exploited to access database information without the need for logging in. Are you listening? You don't need to log
Hmm.
in, just SQL injection. Okay. The plugin is installed on 600,000 WordPress sites. The issue was disclosed to the plugin developer on March 13, 2021, and an updated version was released on March 25th. Okay. I mean, it
That's
took
pretty
them a few
responsive.
days. Yeah, it's pretty responsive, but the other issue, would WordPress owners go and update? By the way, WordPress had another update to the core WordPress installation. And with WordPress now you can install updates automatically, so you don't need to do anything. You just set the WordPress to install the plugins, but also the WordPress installation, and everything will be updated automatically, so you don't need to do anything. Once there is available update for the plugin, it will be updated automatically, so you don't need to do really that much. So you have some automation here. I just want to add another cautious point here, that in some cases, when you do that, the WordPress or the plugin would stop functioning properly. It can happen, but it's better maybe that the site will be down because of some issue with functionality, rather being attacked or vulnerable to some kind of a cyber attack. That's my. It's better to be on that end rather than being exposed, and if you know what I mean.
Right. It's easy to have a outage than it is to have to explain to people that you got hacked.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I'm trying to find on my papers the next thing, and I think we covered that. And we have 1 second. Let me get the other pieces. Okay, and we go to. So I have a huge stack of papers here, and let's see. So okay, and what I'm showing you. Oh, this one. Oh, see?
Google.
Yeah. Do you know the Google company? Oh, I have an interesting information about Google. I learned about it yesterday.
Never heard of
So,
them.
no, yes, me too. So Google is encouraging users to adapt 2FA. Woohoo! I think we did it many times on our cybersecurity
Yes,
insider.
we have.
I'm in a cheat by myself, together, separately. We keep talking about 2FA, and is anyone listening?
I don't think anyone's listening. And the funny thing is most people, it's just annoying. Like the other day, I was saying it. I was like, look, I hate multi-factor authentication. It's a reality. We all hate it. It gets in the way. You're trying to do something. Now, where's your phone at? Oh, let me go to my phone. I gotta go find. That time you don't even know where your phone's at. So or you
What
gotta
happened
go
if
get.
you look? What happened if your phone is just died? Just died.
Right.
It's not functioning.
So then you
Then
gotta
what?
right. So then you gotta
You
wait.
screwed
You
up
gotta wait.
because you get text messages as another form of authentication, or you do with an app or few apps like
Right.
me. I'm using Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator, and then you have another authenticator from another company. So all the authentication is done on your piece of hardware with this phone, and if this is so, then what? We need another backup for the phone.
Exactly. So there is, like I said, that is a situation where a lot of us hate it. But it's a love-hate relationship. We know we require it. It's like we know we have to do it, but we hate it. And if someone can, I know there's a couple of new products out there that are like going passwordless, or you don't need multi-factor. If those things work well, that would be great. Everybody hates this part of it, but we have to do it. Sometimes, as adults, we have to do things we don't want to do.
Yes, and this is also connected to my kids when they want to do something that I don't think they should do. So you see it, yes. So this is interesting. Well, I don't think there's really nothing more to say about it. Yeah, just go and enable it.
Yeah,
I don't know
turn it on.
why are you waiting to
Like I tell
enable
people,
it?
just do this. Pinch your nose. You don't like it. Swallow your
Oh,
medicine. Turn it on.
another point to mention here. This is something interesting. Eventually Google plans to automatically enroll users into two-step verification if their accounts are configured to allow it. So if you allow it on your settings on your Google account, it will automatically force you to use 2FA. Otherwise, it's going to be the same thing with username and password. So this is just another piece to mention. And then we have the next thing is mail servers. Okay. Fixes are available for Exim mail server vulnerabilities. Researchers at Qualys detected 21 security flaws in the Exim mail server. Some of the flaws could be chained together to obtain full remote, unauthenticated code execution and gain root privileges. Okay. And this is actually goes back to releases from 2004. And if people don't understand what we're talking about, it's mail server that runs typically on Linux systems.
Mm-hmm. It's an open
So
source emails that a lot
yes,
of people have these, but they're like, once again, they're not patching them, and that's one of the biggest issues.
yeah. Also interesting to mention that proof of concept code was released at the same time. So if you understand what I'm saying, or if you don't, so I'll say it clearly. If there is a POC, proof of concept, you go right away and patch your systems as soon as possible. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and then here's the thing: this thing talks about them being able to chain different vulnerabilities together and having root access. Well, you assume that this thing doesn't, the people don't have direct access to your server, and there's multiple layers between them and the internet. There's a whole bunch of other things that have to happen for this vulnerability to be exploited. Uh, However, there are people out there that are leaving their networks open, so that's, you know, it can happen. People think it can't. People are leaving, different remote, tools on their machines open. They're leaving it with bad passwords, so it is a possibility. Even though I joke and go, "How can they get in?" Well, people are letting them in.
Yes, and in the easy way.
Right? They let them in.
So yes.
Hey, come steal my stuff.
Oh yes, the door is open. Just take a seat. If you want, I can serve you a beer maybe or a coffee. Depends what you like,
Give you
and
donut.
enjoy the time while you can.
Right? They give you a comfortable chair so you can hack into their stuff. Yeah.
No, you give them. No, you give them as the owner, the data owner. You give them those extra services.
Right. Like I said, you give them a comfortable chair. You go. You want a donut? Thank you.
Yes. I want to mention something again about Google. Yesterday, I saw an interesting event. I got an email from a customer saying, "Listen, this is what I'm getting," and he gets those emails, spam emails, talking about Viagra and other stuff for men. I won't continue to mention other things. But listen, how those emails are coming? They're not coming from a standard from somebody somewhere else. It's coming from Google Forms. Have you heard about Google Forms?
Yes, I heard about the. You know, some
So
people are
my point
exploiting it.
is,
They're exploiting it. But
yeah,
yes.
exactly. So that was really new for me. I said, wow, they are now using Google. So if you think about it, Google is already known to everybody, to the mail systems. It's not considered to be a spam. It's not going to be on the blacklist. Are you going to blacklist Google? Who heard about it, right? So now you prepare a form and you build an automation around that form, and now you bring your email list that you have and you keep feeding that form with that email and you keep sending the emails. So I said, "Oh, this is interesting." I said to my customer, "Listen, this is interesting. Let me investigate." And he said, and then you have at the bottom of the form you can report an abuse. So until Google will investigate, will think how to prevent, I said, you know what? Let me put the sender email at least and blacklist it and increase the spam filtering control to make it more make it stricter. And since yesterday, I didn't hear any complaints. So hopefully that was resolved. So that's it. This is just to give you an update about an insider threat out there. I mean, it's just spam, but who knows? Maybe they will do something else with it. Okay. Anything that you want to talk about it? I mean, I have other stuff that I plan to talk about, but I think we're gonna need to save it for later.
They're not really. Well, my biggest thing, like I said, lately I've just been upset with these managers and these CEOs, and like that's been my biggest thing. It's like they get on there and then they get indignant because people are saying, "Well, why'd you pay? Why'd you pay for the ransomware? All you're doing is promoting it. You're making it worse because they're just gonna keep
Yeah.
doing it." And but my thing
I,
is that they get indignant and they get mad, but the problem is it's their fault from the get go. This is it's their fault. If they would have paid the money for their IT and did what they, when I know you say, well, they don't have the technology. They're not up to date. Well, they got enough money to spend $12 million to send to a hacker, so they're not broke.
no, they are not. They are too cheap to spend the money from the
Exactly.
beginning.
Exactly.
That's all they say. Oh, what are the chances it's going to happen? Why? And you hear this question. I'm a small company. Why people will come after me? I have nothing to, or I have nothing to hide. Who is interested in my data? I have nothing to hide. I don't need the. Okay,
Well, the
this is what.
narrative is that they're underfunded and but I'm like they're underfunded because they don't want to spend the money.
Yes, even when it comes to HIPAA compliance, I remember uh, a case of an incident response, and they suffered a data breach, and I came to them and said, okay, this is the plan how to fix it. And by the way, I mentioned it in my book, and I said, okay, you need to fix those things, and this is the cost that will is associated. Decide to fix it. For every how would it's called every violation, you pay $1 million, right? About. So he said, well, there is another option. I said, what is that option? They said, we'll shut down the business.
Okay, that's up to you.
Okay. And later on, they sold the company. They did something, but this is really interesting. I had another. So I had a customer, a lead came to us and he said, "Okay, we are ready to move on." And then I said, "Okay, you need to have this the firewall." And then that's why I needed this firewall, and this is going to be a problem with the internet speed. And then I said, you need to sign up because we need to finalize the contract. And then I raised the stakes. I said, if you're not going to do something very soon, you'll be out of business. So this is your choice. You want to be in business or you want to be out of business. That's I think this is the bottom line of everything that we talked about here.
You know, when some of these customers and these businesses they start arguing about little things like that, it just like looks they don't have the mindset to understand, and I think that's is why I think there should be some type of minimum standard across the board. There are companies out there that have they spend no money on infrastructure, and then they cry poverty. Yet the CEO makes $30 million a year. It's like okay,
Well, I'm
you know,
not. Well, you're talking about. Look, it depends the message, and I think the message, even to big CEOs, to small CEOs, to small business owners, whatever the message is, they don't want to spend the money, regardless of the size. And regardless of the size, you are still vulnerable, and cyber criminals is still after you, regardless of your size. So
right, and I think those companies that can affect the public at large should be held accountable. I think when you're dealing with, look at every time there's a breach at Netflix, hundreds of millions of people's information gets exposed. When you think of medical, healthcare, some of these, you know, uh, medical plans or HMOs, things like that, they get breached. Now everybody's information's out there. There should be some type of accountability for that. to the people in a sense. Look, if Joe Schmo down the block who owns an accounting company gets breached, his customers get breached. That's one thing. It's a small amount, but when it's a larger public, the public at large, I think there should be a threshold between those small businesses and the accountability of the bigger businesses.
I think in some way it's happening, and you're talking more about compliance. If you look at the New York State the Department of Financial Services,
Hmm.
they try and they're still trying to bring all those small business owners that they are insurance brokers or they are mortgage brokers or they are money transmitter or like check cashing businesses. They're trying to enforce those standards on them, and those guys are not exactly, they don't want to follow it. Some do, and some don't. And this is going to happen, in any industry, in any vertical. So I'm not expecting that things will change unless you come with a different incentive. And this is an idea that I had before, and I don't know if I mentioned it. How about you give tax credits
Right.
for
For those
businesses
that are spending
so
that type of money.
spending that money and have maybe a threshold? Okay, if you spend $20,000, we'll give you $5,000 in tax credits. If you pay 50 or whatever, and you need to show the documentation, you need to have somebody,
Right.
a third party that will come and verify all everything and submit his certification to the IRS, for instance, or any kind of a federal or state.
Right.
And now
Somebody that
I'm in
gives you
the
a documentation for it in case you're audited. Yes.
Yes, that you've been audited. Yes, and they spend the money. They need to show the invoices. You need to show proof that you did something, and the money was really taken from the bank account. And you show them all of those proof. Maybe that will make them push them to make those investments, or for how they look at it. They look at it as an expense, but we look at it as an investment, not to spend. So let's say now you spend $1,000 per month, just for an instance. However, a ransomware attack could cost you $50,000. So the question is, would you rather spend $50,000 plus $10,000 or $12,000 per year, or what are your choices here? So this is kind of to look at the alternatives and select the right answer from those.
Yeah. I think there are multiple things. I think, when it comes with the government, there has to be some type of accountability with some type of law, or like you say, look, you have to follow a set standard, or whatever the industry, because I know different industries require it. Obviously, healthcare requires some type of compliance. There are other industries that work with the government require compliance. So if the government says, look, you have to have some compliance in these type of industries, financing, whether you're a small accountant or big accountant, there are things that are comparable versus, big accounting firm versus a small one, but they still have to have some type of compliance, and it's documented, and somebody has to audit that, an independent audit that says, okay, yes, you cleared, you're good, so that if there's never any type of issue, they can show the document. And if they can't produce the document, they get fined.
Right, and then after you did it and you showed that you did it and a breach happened,
Right.
so listen, I did here, I spent the money, I gave you, he did his due diligence. That's it, it's done. So
Right.
it happened, and things happen. It's
Well,
not like you're living in a perfect world.
Well, the only thing I can say is, once again, I think the insurance company is ahead of everyone lately because they're requiring a lot of the cybersecurity insurance in certain industries. And I think once go to Brooklyn, don't miss it.
You hear the train, right?
Yeah, don't miss the noise.
Yeah, the office is right under this train.
I know. Don't miss the noise. I used to live next to a train, and when I lived in Staten Island, I lived on a major street, and there was a train there too. So it sounded like the background was like on a TV show. You hear the cops, woo 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 woo. You hear everything.
Yeah,
So,
hopefully we're gonna move the office to a place where we'll hear some birds in the background and
Right.
not
So
this
you know, coming
noise.
coming here to Jersey was the best because it's dead silent where I live at.
Right, you're in
But
New Jersey, right? Yes.
right. So a lot of the companies don't want to do anything. So like I was saying, the insurance companies are forcing their hands. They're forcing people to get cybersecurity. And slowly enough, and I know I spoke with different people in the insurance agency, insurance companies, is that if you want that level of protection, then you have to start complying with certain rules. And they're doing it with small businesses and they're doing it with major companies, major corporations, and slowly but surely they're rolling out that, if you want to be covered and you don't, in case of, some ransomware comes and you get hit with a $5 million bill, we'll cover you, but we're going to demand a bunch of things from you. And I think they're ahead of that already. And hopefully they can make a big difference.
Right. And I would just want to mention that I will have, I'll bring another person to our podcast that is actually an insurance broker, and we'll let him talk about his side of the business. So we'll see. I'm expecting to have it in June.
Okay.
That he will show up, and that's it. So, anything else before we done?
Um, no, like we said, do the basics, and just say, start with the low hanging fruit. And I think if you don't know where to start as a small business, you're a, 1 or 2 person company. I think the easiest thing to do is to just start with one thing and then start building on that. Make sure you have a firewall, make sure you're patched, things like that. Just do the basics. Once you get to there, then you could start doing more advanced things. But just start doing something today.
Right, exactly. And this is a key point. Once you finish listening to this uh, our podcast, take one thing. Doesn't matter what it is. And I think maybe if you want to get the best return of the investment of your time, start with patch management. That probably will reduce the risk by a lot. So just do one thing. If you get out from this podcast and you're listening to us, we say just patch. Start with patching. So with that, we're gonna conclude our podcast today. This is the Cybersecurity Insider, Igal Behar, episode 19 with Seth Melendez, right? I said right?
Melendez. Melendez.
Melendez. Okay, Melendez.
We're Geek
Okay.
Solutions.
Yes. So we'll see you next time. Hopefully, maybe later today, or maybe Friday, or maybe next week we'll have another recording. We have more stuff to talk about as always, and we'll bring the insurance person with us in the same podcast, and we'll talk insurance more, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Take care. We're going to end the broadcast now. Thank you, Seth.
All
See
right.
you later. Take
See you
care.
later. All
Bye
right, bye.
bye.